So what this week? What anything pissing you off?
Kyle, this week has been we'll call it a target rich environment. Lots of stuff pissing me off this week. But one in particular I want to talk about, and I'll tell you, this is actually something that's pretty meaningful to me. It's it's this idea. I always like to say to folks, there was an episode of Seinfeld once, right? Where this lady is heckling Seinfeld. I don't know if you remember the episode. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's
And then
Captain somebody.
turnabout's fair play, right? He shows up at her office and heckles her in her job. It seems to me when people and by the way, people feel like they have the absolute God-given right to weigh in on every single issue, every single time, in every single forum that they can find to do that. That happens, right? Even when they don't understand the issue that they're weighing in on. So I think especially when it comes to what people do, I just think it's generally bad practice to weigh in on those sorts of issues. So I'll give you a couple of examples that where I'm guilty of this and I do it and I'm wrong. Oftentimes when Craig Counsell, the Chicago Cubs manager, makes a mistake, sometimes I'll be online. Well, Craig Counsell really effed that up. Knowing I have zero concept of what it's like to be a manager in Major League Baseball, right? Like I don't understand all of the thought process that goes into that, the economics of it, even the data and stuff that's related to that. But, sometimes people weigh in on that. Other sorts of circumstances as well. Here's where it's of particular, what irritates me beyond anything is when people do that related to military service.
Okay.
Now, if somebody in the military is claiming something that they shouldn't be claiming, that's one thing, right? They're stealing valor. I'm wearing medals on my chest that don't belong to me. That's easily, that's related to my representation or embellishment of my service. Go after it all day long. I get it. I understand it. I appreciate it. But if you don't understand military service and what goes in it, especially if you haven't served, it's hard to understand what goes into military service. Shut the fuck up. You don't need to weigh in on the quality of somebody's service. That's happened to me running for office. I deployed to fucking Baghdad, Iraq. Prosecuted insurgents when I'm in Iraq. I've got people back here saying, well, he really didn't prosecute people. He's using the wrong word there. He just processed them. Or I had a person once say to me, and these are political leaders in the state of Colorado, former mayor of Colorado Springs, diminishing my service and has no fucking idea what it's about, right?
Yeah.
Like no idea at all. He didn't go. He wasn't in Iraq separating himself from his family for whatever period of time it is. Putting yourself in harm's way, which by the way, I have always admitted a lawyer in the green zone is way different than one of those young Marines out there knocking down doors in Fallujah. I mean, they really put it on the line every day. We just got bombed a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But if you haven't been there, you don't get to talk about it. You don't get to talk about the quality of that service. I got a problem with that. I had somebody say to me, so when you prosecuted people in Iraq, it was for what? It was for writing graffiti on the walls or for littering? Like, you got to be fucking kidding me. The reason that we're in Iraq away from our families is because we're trying to clean up graffiti? No. We're there for democratic purposes.
Yeah.
Because Saddam Hussein is a threat to our interest in the region. not
Yeah.
because of graffiti. So you don't get to say that.
Yeah.
I get with it, and this Waltz thing, it kind of triggers me a little bit, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, this is back in the forefront nationally with Walz being picked to be the vice presidential candidate.
And I get it. I get that there's been some embellishment there. You know, the guy says at one point, you know, makes a comment about being in combat, and he wasn't in combat. I get that. I get the calling him out on that. But the guy served 24 years. He served 24 years honorably. You know, which, by the way, nobody seems to give it. Well, he didn't go to Iraq or he didn't go to Afghanistan when his unit deployed. Guess what? You serve 24 years, you get to retire when you want to retire.
Yeah.
You do, because you've done
2
it
months before they got called up.
for all that time, right? Yeah. And he made a value decision in his life. Hey, I want to run for Congress. This is where I feel that I can serve better. And so it's time for me to retire. I don't think it had anything to do with being a chicken or being afraid to go deploy or not deploy. It's, you know, this is a value decision. I've served I did 24 years of giving up all, you know, my weekends, 1 weekend a month, 24 years of giving up my vacations to do military duty. You know, I mean, I can remember being in the reserves, you know, and that reserve weekend comes up and you're like, man, I've just worked, you know, my job as a deputy district attorney. I worked 50, 60, 70 hours doing that job. And now I gotta suck it up and do the reserve duty. That's not always easy, even if it just sounds like it's a weekend a month, but it's still time away from your family. It's time, it's, you know, it's recovery and relaxation time that you're not getting. Then, you know, you got to take those 2 weeks out of the year when, you know, well, we're not going to be able to go on vacation this year because I got to do, you know, that 2-week annual drill stuff. And so when people don't understand that, when people have not been a part of that and still criticize it, I think it is just massively inappropriate. And that really, you know, we joke a lot about stuff that pisses me off. This actually does.
Yeah.
Because you don't get to call the quality of somebody's service into question when you haven't served. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
It's not a fucking First Amendment issue to say don't do it. Just don't do it. You know, one, it's wrong. It's wrong to call that into question. But two, I think it is a very poor tactical decision in this circumstance with Tim Walz.
Yeah, exactly.
To call his service into question, to say somehow those 24 years weren't honorable enough, when the guy at the top of our ticket got a deferment in Vietnam.
For bone spurs.
Yeah, for bone spurs, right? And you know what? He got that deferment when loads of people like him got those deferments. I'm not calling that into question.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be wrong for other people that weren't in that circumstance to call it into question. Right? Like, nobody wanted to go to Vietnam. That's where, you know, 58,000 Americans died there. You know, people were trying to get out of that service. And it's not appropriate for us to call that into question, just like it's not appropriate to call the quality of Tim Walz's service into question. He embellishes his record, go after it. Go for it.
Yep.
Just don't call the quality of his service into question, especially if you haven't been there and you don't understand it. That's what I'm pissed off about, Kyle.
Good point. Very good point.
God, you're cheaper than therapy, buddy. I love you.
Hey, like I said, like you said, we joke around a lot, but that's not something to joke around about. So, no, I think that's well-spoken and good advice for everybody. So, well, thank you again for another week, another fun episode. And again, we'll be back next week to talk about ballot issues. In the meantime, if somebody wants to start reading up on ballot issues, obviously some of them have their own campaign sites, but if you want to get an overview, Colorado Secretary of State's website has information, and Ballotpedia actually had some pretty solid information about each one of the ballot issues. So a couple of different resources. There's probably others.
I'll bet we can
take a
drop
look at-
some links in the comments sections on YouTube and Facebook if you want to go check them out. We'll get that done.
Cool. Sounds good. Hey, take it easy.
All right. Hey, before we go, what should people do?
Subscribe to YouTube.
That's right. Like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. We really want you to go to YouTube, but Facebook is great as well. And also, if you have some comments for us, obviously I put this my thoughts out there on Facebook, knowing that I was going to get a lot of negative feedback on this whole service issue. I think it's hard to try to really articulate what I'm feeling about it. Just in a few sentences on Facebook. But if you have comments for us, please go drop us a comment. We want to respond to those. And we really want your feedback on, this episode, this rant, and just anything in general.
Great. Thanks, Mark.
Talk to you later, Kyle.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.